All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on something called the procure-to-pay cycle in SAP. Now, it might sound a little complicated, but it's basically the secret sauce for how huge companies buy, well, pretty much everything.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered how a giant global company buys stuff? And I mean everything, from a single paperclip all the way up to a brand new jet engine. How do they possibly manage all of that without it turning into complete and utter chaos? Well, the answer lies in a really well-structured process.
So what is this mystery process? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a company's automated, super organized shopping trip. We call it the procure-to-pay cycle, or just P2P for short. Okay, so at its heart, the P2P cycle is the entire life cycle of a purchase. I mean, from the very second someone says, hey, we need this, all the way through to the final payment clearing the bank. And for big companies, this whole shebang is managed inside these incredibly powerful systems, like SAP's Materials Management Module. That's the part of the software that's basically the brain for all things logistics and inventory. So here it is, the whole journey laid out for us. You can really break it down into 4 main stages. First, you've got requisition and sourcing. That's the we need something phase. Then, vendor selection, choosing who to buy from. After that, the purchase order is created, which makes it official. And finally, you handle the invoice and payments. Think of this as our roadmap for the next few minutes. All right, let's dive into the first leg of this journey, finding the right partners. This is so important. It's all about laying that solid foundation, because a smart purchase actually starts way before anyone even thinks about clicking the buy button. Okay, so if we look back at our roadmap, we're zoning in right here on these first 2 steps, requisition and sourcing and vendor selection. This is all the strategic stuff, the homework that has to happen right at the beginning. So where does it all start? It usually begins with a need, which gets formally written down in something called a purchase requisition. Think of it as the official, we need to buy this. From there, the sourcing part is basically detective work. You're out there finding and checking out potential suppliers. And once you have your list of candidates, vendor selection begins. And listen, this is not just about finding the cheapest option. It's about looking at everything, quality, reliability, you name it. It's about finding a real partner. This groundwork is absolutely crucial.
All right, so we've done our homework. We found our trusted partners. Now we're ready for the main event, the core transaction. This is where the money and the goods actually start moving.
So let's check our map again. We're now diving right into the heart of the process, looking at the purchase order and that final invoice and payment stage. You could call this the action phase, for sure. Okay, so the purchase order. Think of it as the official digital handshake. It's the company's legally binding way of saying, yep, we want to buy this for this price under these conditions. Then, after the stuff arrives, the supplier sends over the invoice. And this is where the system is just brilliant. It automatically does something called a 3-way match. It's like a little robot accountant that checks the invoice, the purchase order, and the delivery receipt to make sure everything lines up perfectly. This guarantees the company only pays for what it actually ordered and received. Pretty smart, right? Okay, so we've found a partner, we've placed an order, but with all this happening, how does a massive system like this keep everything on the straight and narrow? How does it stay efficient and, honest? Well, that brings us to what I like to call the system's guardrails. And it's a totally fair question, isn't it? I mean, you've got thousands, maybe millions of transactions happening. How does a system like SAP stop someone from making a huge mistake, or even committing fraud, or, accidentally ordering 1 million paperclips instead of 1,000? The one-word answer is validation. This whole control system really boils down to 2 key things. On one hand, you've got the legal documents. These are the contracts, the agreements. They define what everyone agreed to. But then, on the other hand, you have the business rules that are actually programmed into the SAP system. These rules define how the process has to work, and they automatically enforce company policy. So, for example, a rule might say, hey, any purchase over $10,000 needs a director's approval, and the system literally will not let that purchase go forward until it gets that digital thumbs up. So at the end of the day, it's this powerful combo, the legal paperwork plus the smart, configurable business rules that makes the whole P2P cycle so trustworthy. And this is what's so cool about it. It lets every single company tweak the system to fit its own unique needs. The result is a process that's not just reliable, but also perfectly tailored to how they do business. Okay, let's step back for a second and look at the big picture. What's the big takeaway here? I mean, why go through all this trouble? Why does this complicated digital handshake matter so much anyway? Well, it really boils down to 4 huge benefits.
First, a well-oiled P2P cycle is just plain fast and efficient. Second, it guarantees that every single purchase is compliant, which helps you avoid massive headaches like paying the same invoice twice. Third, it gives the company a crystal clear, real-time view of exactly where its money is going. And finally, by making the whole process smooth and predictable, it builds the kind of trust that is the foundation for amazing, long-term supplier relationships.
Look, the procure-to-pay cycle is already a masterpiece of business logic, but trust me, it is not standing still. So I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. In a world that's getting more and more automated, with AI popping up everywhere, what's the next evolution for this digital handshake? How do you think things like machine learning and predictive analytics are going to completely change the way companies buy things in the future?